especially welcome all of our invited guests. Thank you for making it. And we understand that a few more persons are by the corner and will be joining us shortly. So, a little bit of an announcement. We've got interpretation channels, so you can go right at the back and pick up a headphone. Channel 5 for English and Channel 6 for French. So, if you'd like to have all of those facilities, just go right at the back and pick up a headphone. All right, so my name is Chuba Ezegwe. I'm the communications manager for Heifer International in Nigeria. And again, we're glad to have all of you join us. We'll be kicking off very shortly with a keynote address. And of course, the keynote address will be taken by the country director of Heifer International in Ethiopia. Ladies and gentlemen, may we now welcome Mr. Teddy Ayele.
Thank you. Good afternoon, you all. Hello, and thank you all for joining us for this side event. My name is Theodoros Ayele, and I'm the country director of Heifer International, Ethiopia country office. It's with great pleasure and enthusiasm that I stand before you today to discuss a topic of utmost significance, leveraging innovative capital for African use in agriculture. In a world controlled by multifaceted challenges, the vitality of empowering the young minds in agriculture cannot be overstated. The potential that lies within the continent's use, coupled with the transformative power of innovative capital, can usher in an area of sustainable development, economic growth, and food security across Africa. Agricultural development is critical for food security and poverty reduction all over the world. In Africa, it plays an even more vital role and contributes significantly to the growth of economies. In Ethiopia, where I come from, the agriculture market is estimated at $4.8 billion as of 2023, and is projected to reach $6.3 billion in the next 5 years. The sector's contribution to the country's economy is huge, about 40% of GDP, 80% of exports, and providing jobs for about 75% of the workforce in the country. It's predicted that by 2030, young Africans are expected to constitute 42% of the global use. Africa, with its abundant natural resources and useful population, has the potential to be the breadbasket of the world. Yet the reality is that many African countries continue to grapple with food insecurity, unemployment, and rural-urban migration. The youth, representing a significant segment of the population, bring forth a multitude of innovative ideas and solutions that are truly inspiring. However, these young innovators face challenges ranging from limited access to finance, inadequate training, and insufficient infrastructure. Traditional financing models often fail to meet their needs, stifling innovation and growth. Moreover, the perception of agriculture as a low-income profession deters our young minds from pursuing it as a viable career option. To empower these agripreneurs and create a thriving agribusiness ecosystem, a paradigm shift is imperative. Solving this challenge to scale innovative, use-led solutions for smallholder farmers has become an important part of our work at Heifer International. We recognize that fostering innovation in agriculture requires a holistic approach that encompasses not just funding, but also mentorship, training, and market linkage. We believe the future of Africa's agriculture hinges on creating opportunities for young African innovators to transform the agricultural landscape, catalyzing ground-up innovation from young Africans and making agriculture a desired career for the future. Through various initiatives, we have provided innovative capital to young professionals developing and deploying tech innovations that are enhancing smart farming and food production across the continent. The impact of the various programs we have partnered with these young innovators on is heartwarming and encouraging us to do more. One of these initiatives is the IUT Africa Challenge. IUT is one of the most ambitious agriculture competitions on the continent to empower and support young professionals who are developing and deploying tech innovations that are reimagining farming and food production across the continent. Since 2021, we have awarded up to 1.5 million US dollar each year across the region. Our support doesn't end here. Heifer partners with a team of expert advisors, both internal and external, to support IUT Africa champions as they translate this funding into aggressive business expansion strategies. We believe innovative capital includes everything that helps these young agripreneurs innovate beyond their talent. It is a sum of the assets, tangible and intangible. It includes financing, networks and partnership, human capacity and mentorship. Traditional funding avenues often fall short in meeting the unique demands of our young agripreneurs. It's here that innovative financing steps in. Crowdfunding, impact investing, venture capital. These approaches have the potential to unlock the door to fund that can drive groundbreaking change. This is not just about providing financial support. It's about recognizing the potential of high returns, not only in terms of profits, but also in terms of social and environmental impact. To conclude, I will just share a quick example how catalytic innovative capital is to unlocking the potential of innovative solutions. One of our Ethiopian national IUT winners, Tour Biotech, tackled the challenge of shortage, low productivity, and affordability of agricultural inputs within the vibrant crop production space. The program creates more productive and affordable inoculums, which require a minimal usage rate of 1 to 1.5 kilograms per hectare by providing smallholder farmers with advanced and affordable biofertilizers, biopesticides, and other biocontrol agents. The program has strengthened resilience in farming. Heifer's innovative capital enabled Tour Biotech improve research and development, access to finance, and achieve sustainable scalability of their work. The impact of this program in the other young agripreneurs we are partnering with to scale across Africa excites us about the possibilities for the future of the continent's food system. The time has come to recognize the youth as the driving force of agricultural transformation in Africa. By leveraging innovative capital through mechanisms like crowd investing, we can bridge the gaps that hinder their progress. Let us embark on this journey together, a journey that holds the promise of food security, economic prosperity, and sustainable development. Together, we can empower African youth to not only cultivate the land, but also cultivate innovation, growth, and prosperity for generations to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Tewodros Teddy Ayele. That was a good way to set the tone. Picked a lot of interesting things from that speech, Teddy, especially how young people are hungry and are beginning to participate. The question is, how can we push them? How can we support them? And we're going to be playing a video next, and this video talks about our mechanization response in Africa, how we've used mechanization to unlock commercial capital and to unlock various multifaceted responses that target smallholder farmers and help address some of their very, very nail-biting needs. If you're ready, please, can we have the mechanization video up next? Thank you.
According to Africa Development Bank, Africa spends $75 billion annually to import 100 metric tons of food into the continent. And this set in the context of a continent that is able to feed 9 billion people, given the fact that it has the world's largest arable land. With all that in mind, smallholder farmers still remain the largest producers of Africa's food today. And that means that the importance of supporting these smallholder farmers to improve their productivity in order to address this issue of food sufficiency for the continent is critical. In the last 49 years, Heifer has worked side by side with smallholder farmers across the continent, supporting to improve their capacity so that they can increase their productivity. In 2021, we launched the Ayute Challenge, and this challenge is a vehicle to crowd in innovators across the continent to come in and support in building the capacity of smallholder farmers and helping to improve their productivity. One of the first winners of this competition is Hello Tractor. Hello Tractor is an innovative model that supports farmers to be able to have access to affordable and available tractor service within their community and also at a price point that these farmers can afford to pay for.
Capital can unlock the opportunity within the sector, but commercial banks aren't lending. And so we came into the market with a different hypothesis. And that's when we launched the pay-as-you-go tractor finance product supported by Heifer International. This product identifies community-based booking agents who have pre-identified and pre-booked enough farmers in the Hello Tractor app to actually absorb an entire tractor themselves. We identify those booking agents, finance the right equipment for them to now become tractor owners themselves, servicing the farmers in their network directly. And as they service that demand, they're making small loan repayments based on the usage of the tractor. So it's a pay-as-you-go model.
We really believe that this innovation is one innovation that has come to the continent at the right time, because Africa today has the lowest productivity per hectare as well as the lowest penetration of tractors per hectare. And we believe that supporting this innovation to integrate and serve smallholder farmers across the continent will certainly impact on productivity and food sufficiency for the continent. With an initial grant of $1 million, Heifer and Hello Tractor were able to co-design a pay-as-you-go tractor financing program. A subsequent investment of $3.5 million extended the impact of this program to reach more smallholder farmers in Nigeria, Kenya, and Uganda. This report today highlights the details of the impact of this program.
Farmers often spend a lot of time cultivating their lands, which is very manual. So a lot of the time is spent on cultivating, tilling, and also in when they are harvesting. And it's very manual, labor intensive, and takes a lot of time. And we do know that mechanization provides an opportunity to be able to free those farmers, even in terms of the lifespan. And so looking at these Tractors for Africa, we believe in working within the community by providing the community with an opportunity to own this mechanized asset that then they can be able to use within the community to mechanize and then free a lot of the time that they are spending. But also it is more efficient and effective and affordable, but at the same time creating job opportunities for the youth and other people within the community.
So far, in 1 year of execution of that project, we've been able to enable smallholder farmers get access to 16 tractors. Over 80,000 hectares of land have been opened up. And that then indicates that more food is going to be produced that can enable the population of Uganda to be fed. But most important of all, to enable the farmers who are under production to make money so that they can be able to close the living income gap. So we are very much excited being part of this project because we think that it's changing the way agriculture is being undertaken in the country. It's encouraging and pulling young people to get interested in farming because we need to drive young people within the ag sector. And the best way to drive young people within the ag sector is by enabling them to have tools of work that can simplify the work that they do. And tractorization of farming is one of that process.
Rice is one of the priority value chains for the government of Nigeria. We're trying to improve and increase in the production of rice in the country to be able to feed ourselves. So increasing local production of rice will create a lot of job opportunities for the smallholder farmers that are growing the rice and other actors and players within the value chain. So tractor in Nigeria that have been introduced to the smallholder farmers enable these farmers now to be able to cultivate that same amount of land 40 times faster than using manual labor. And also, they've been experiencing yield that range up to 50% increase in yield of what they're getting from the same amount of land. And also, having access to tractor also has enabled more women to be able to participate and be more inclusive in that rice value chain production.
Beyond the impact discussed in this report so far, the project also sought to prove that innovative grants can be used to unlock commercial capital to address problems that are at scale and also impact smallholder farmers' capacity to improve their productivity. Through this partnership, Heifer and Hello Tractor have been able to design a project that allowed us to test out the use case for pay-as-you-go tractor financing model. And subsequently, the project was also successful to unlock commercial capital from other partners.
The partnership with Hello Tractor and Heifer was the first of its kind, where we're injecting capital at the base of the pyramid, financing entrepreneurs who are traditionally unbanked to become tractor owners. And Heifer invested in that idea. This investment started with $5 million deployed in the first 6 months. This capital was proven to be very well spent, with less than 3% delinquencies in our portfolio and almost every single tractor on that platform servicing smallholder farmers. This success has unlocked commercial capital. And now, for the first time, we have numerous commercial banks financing our customers in the next round of financing. By the end of the year, we'll be at $17 million in deployments. That's a lot of growth, taking a bet on entrepreneurs that the broader market forgot about. And the partnership between Hello Tractor and Heifer made it happen.
It's exciting to see the impact of this program after the first 3 years. When we began this program, we had asked ourselves, what will 50,000 tractors do for smallholder farmers and their communities in Africa? And from the results of the first 3 years of implementation, it is clear that bringing together the right innovation that fits the right challenge, supported by innovative financing, can certainly transform the lives of smallholder farmers, whilst also creating relevant jobs for youth in those communities where they live and work. We see part of the learnings from this project to be the highlight of the fact that not only do smallholder farmers need innovation around accessing funds, but innovators themselves, who we hope will solve the problem for smallholder farmers in our continent, also need to be supported with innovative financing to test out different models that might not necessarily fit with how we've solved problems in the past, but are obviously the solutions we need today to make a difference in our continent, to change the dynamics of the numbers that we see with respect to how much food is imported into the continent, but most importantly, to unleash the potential of smallholder farmers to feed the continent.
You wanted to clap? Go ahead. I think it's best I leave it high. It is nothing to add, really. The next conversation would unlock a number of other angles to what's happening with that project. The mechanization project in Africa being tested across 3 countries is unlocking millions of metric tons of additional food, bringing millions of hectares of land into production, and there's more, certainly more that can be done. So I'll now be inviting to moderate the panel session Ife Oluwa. Ife Oluwa Olatayo is the founder of Super Farm and Market, and she will be moderating the panel session. I'll have her come and invite the panelists. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed participants, you're welcome once again to this insightful AFA International organized session on leveraging innovative capital for use in agriculture. I am very excited to be moderating this panel session. I am a founder of an agritech in Nigeria, and for this session, my goal for the next 1 hour is to make sure that everybody in the room, and especially by learning from the panelists, we're able to explore the dynamic intersection of youth empowerment, innovation, and agriculture. Essentially, I will be, in a minute, introducing the panelists to the stage. And we know that we'll be taking a lot of learning from them to shed light into the sustainable growth opportunities, as well as to know more about the creative capital solutions that can drive change, especially for youth in agriculture in Africa, and also in a way that empowers them and engages them to create next generation of impact. Without a further ado, I want to introduce the panelists one after the other to the stage. First, I'm starting with Mr. Daniel Huber. Mr. Daniel Huber is the Vice President, Sub-Saharan Africa, MasterCard H&D. Please welcome Mr. Daniel Huber to the stage. Up next is an agri-innovator that will be a part of the panel session. That is in the person of Ayodeji Arikawe. Ayodeji Arikawe is a co-founder of Thrive Agric and the winner of the Africa Regional Prize, Ayute, West Africa, for the year 2022. Next, I'm inviting Mr. Martin Fregene. Dr. Martin Fregene is the Director of Agriculture for African Development Bank. You're welcome, Dr. Martin Fregene. And the second agri-innovator that will be on the panel is the person of Jemima Wanjiku. Jemima Wanjiku is the co-founder of DigiCal and also the Ayute Regional winner for the year 2022 East Africa. You're welcome. Last but not the least is Mr. Rufus Idris. Mr. Rufus Idris is the Country Director Nigeria for HIFA International. You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you very much to the panelists. And as we look forward to this insightful engagement organized by HIFA International for us to learn from, I have a question directed to the audience. For what it is more of a statement than it is a question. So I want an applause if you agree, or a boo if you disagree. So agriculture in Africa is saddled with a humongous level of challenges all through the value chain. However, the youth are best positioned to make sure that these challenges turn into innovative solutions, and provided they have proper financing, they will be able to scale this for impact. An applause or a boo? Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And now that takes us to the first question, which is directed to Ayodeji Arikawe. So Ayodeji, we want you to tell us what the challenges and opportunities in providing innovative financial solutions are that are specifically tailored to meet the needs of small-scale producers in rural Africa, and as well on how we can leverage these opportunities to enhance sustainable agriculture development for economic growth, particularly when it comes to focusing on young individuals.
Thank you. So today, Africa spends tens of billions of dollars importing food into the country yearly, right? And it's an irony because we have like over 500 million smallholder farmers. But the challenge is these farmers just grow enough to feed themselves, and in a few months, they themselves are hungry. So I think what we've done and what we've seen as the opportunity is, there's one key thing: how do we capture critical data, which banks are willing to lend to farmers? We built something called the Agriculture Operating System. Works entirely offline. It's a solution that helps us to analyze a farmer's psychometric data, take data on his field, what's the standing within this community, put them into trust groups to cross-guarantee themselves, and then share this data with banks who are then willing to leverage that data to provide financing to farmers. And I think we need to, and of course, not just the technology, but there's also a team of people. So we have about 2,000 young people who are on the field with these apps, deploying it to the farmers, and then the banks can rely on that structure. Today we've worked with a couple commercial banks in Nigeria who have deployed over $200 million in the last 5 years. So I think it actually is possible. The question is, are we willing to do the work to go on the field and put these farmers together? And beyond just providing them the credits, we then ensure that, how do we ensure that cash turns into value for the farmers? So today, if you give a farmer $200 cash, is he going to be able to get the right seeds, the right fertilizers, the right crop protection products? How do we deliver that service to them? That's cash as a package, and then layer another insurance. How do you take that same data and then provide the farmers things like advice based on rainfall patterns, based on the vegetative cover on their land, based on the type of soil they use, and then lastly, then help them sort of like sell their products. So what we've done is we've built a solution end-to-end that ensures that we can connect the farmer to finance, to advice, and to market. And then when you then present that to banks, then you see them willing to lend that. And I think that's something we've proven, and that's something we see are able to scale. And I think like it even then goes further that, and that speaks to what we're trying to do at Ayute today, which is, today that data is only relevant to the Thrive ecosystem, right? But how do we help those smallholder farmers even leverage other financial services? How do we help them leverage things like school loans or housing loans? So today, as part of winning Ayute, the project we'll be launching is ensuring that we can actually get farmers direct access to financial services. So we're going to plug them into banks, issue them BVN, get them a debit card. And the meaning is the banks can now see the financial data of what they're doing on Thrive's ecosystem and then lend them money to do many other things. So I think it definitely is possible. The challenge is massive, but we have the number of farmers to do it, we have the land to do it, and if we provide them the financing, the technology, and the market, then we can actually get these farmers to feed Africa and the world.
Thank you very much, Ayodeji. Thank you for explaining what you do with your solution from Thrive Agric and how it creates inclusion for farmers, especially using data to access financing. Now that takes me to the next question, which is related for Jemima. So how can we strategically mobilize donors and impact investors to channel substantial funding towards empowering and supporting the youth in agriculture to foster innovation and drive sustainable development across Africa?
Okay, thank you so much, and good afternoon. We must focus on 3 pillars, one being engagement and collaboration. We do not necessarily only have to give funds or the monetary value, there is power in collaboration. I'll give a case scenario. When we began as DigiCow, our work revolves around development of technologies to digitize extension services for smallholder farmers. And we were very keen on impact. DigiCow was born from a farmer, and our focus was impact, impact, impact. And we developed not quite knowing how we were going to embed our business model and how we were going to structure it. We were fortunate to collaborate with Heifer International, not for monetary support, but they introduced us to produce organizations that they were working with in one region in Kenya. And from there, we had the atmosphere and the place to test out our business model, which in the last eight months has earned us 462,000 USD, which is commendable for a startup that did not have a clear business model, yeah? We also need to focus on data-driven storytelling. As an innovator, when you're innovating, you base your value based on the present. You're not able to forecast and say that this is where we are headed, this is the kind of impact that we'll be having, this is how much will be valued, and that also affects funding and how investors even view you. So we need to focus on structuring data-driven stories that can assist young innovators structure themselves, package themselves, and be able to sell themselves to investors and to also donors. The third thing that we need to focus on is capacity building. We need to capacity build young innovators to think like business people. I remember in 2018 we applied for a grant and they requested for our pitch deck. It was a shock, and I'll be very honest, and we were wondering what is a pitch deck and how do we work around this. Again, we were fortunate enough to have a partner, Strathmore University, through the Women in Technology, coming on board and assisting us in developing that pitch deck and also mentoring us on how to pitch and how to approach donors, etc., etc. Going back to engagement and collaboration, as young innovators, it can be very, very challenging to scale your business model and your solution. Again, at DigiCow, we've been fortunate to work with the World Bank through the disruptive agricultural technology, where they introduced us to county governments. And as a private sector, trying to penetrate the public sector can be a headache, given the structures and the processes that are there. While working with the county governments, we've been able to scale to a base of 198,000 farmers whom we work with on a monthly basis. And initially, we began with only 10 farmers in 2016, so getting to 198,000, it's a big win. And we've been able to get into MOUs with 20 counties, and from there, that's how we are scaling. If we were to focus on these 3 pillars, then financing would be very innovative because we'll have a 360-degree overlook, not only looking at financing for returns, but also for impacts, both social and environmental impact. Those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Very interesting thoughts, Jemima. Thank you for explaining how young people can be well prepared to access this impact investment so that they could help bring the solution to market and scale it. The next question I'm directing to Mr. Rufus Idris, and the question is how we can leverage technology and innovation as long-term viable solutions to enhance the income and livelihood of smallholder farmers and communities, and especially for youth in Africa.
Thank you so much, Felua, for that question. Permit me to ask some questions quickly before I drive my point, to know that, am I right to say that everyone in this room, that we all eat food? Am I right to say that? Am I right to say that we cannot go for days without food in our stomach, but we can go for days without money in our pocket? Is that correct? Okay, so some people are behind driving the production of this food that we eat. Majority of those people are smallholder farmers that work day in, day out to produce the food that we eat. And they're very, very instrumental and important if we must survive as people on the continent, especially in Africa. These smallholder farmers face a lot of challenges that's making them to be
tied into underproduction. Either issue of not being able to get the right kind of productivity level or yield that they require, not being able to access finance, we heard about that in the earlier session, not being able to access mechanization services that can help boost their productivity or production level, not being able to access weather forecast information that can help them to plan more and forecast and plan more for planting activities or farm activities, or also even being insured to ensure that their farms are secured and they have more resilience to all this impact. These are so many things that focus and challenge smallholder farmers. So if we must improve the income of smallholder farmers, we must address all these pain points from start of production till the end, and also to the point of even going to the market side, and also till they get to the table for everyone that feeds. And that's the chain. And also we talk about it being a livelihood for them. Investing and doing some work in that space, making smallholder farmers see more value for what they grow, makes that particular industry and that sector attractive to also our young people that can now come into that space and also be able to take over and start producing food to feed the rest of us. So if we look at, for example, we were talking earlier about just accessing finance, and we heard about how the commercial banks are highly regulated, and it's very difficult to get loans to farmers at a price point or interest rate that's very farmer friendly. So we need to embrace more innovation in such a way that we can bring that cost of lending down, as mentioned by the commercial bank earlier. How do we get more development organizations or more partners to bring in investment that can help reduce the cost of borrowing or the cost of funds? How do we get more of the tech young people, which we have as our major and large part of our population? We call that demographic dividend. We have so many young people that are very innovative and creative and entrepreneurial, but we're beginning to tap into that opportunity, but I don't think we've done enough yet, and we'll continue to do more as we go down the line. A lot of them have solutions where smallholder farmers can now access financing that comes right on time. Not the normal bank funding that we had earlier that will come 7 days, 2 weeks, 3 weeks into the farming season. The farmer is already losing a lot of yield that they've been able to achieve in that particular year. So more financing that fits the farmer's need and is designed to meet the farmer's target, that comes at a reasonable interest rate to the smallholder farmers. And the method of tracking, managing, recovering the funds is more driven with technology and innovation that makes it also easy and faster and more efficient in the process. A few of our agri-tech members that are on the panel have solutions that are doing something like that. Like Clever Agri have solutions where farmers are being funded and being financed using simple technology that can better track them, give them more visibility, like FX also mentioned earlier, that's been done as well. Extension services as well. People like DigiCow technology as well, helping farmers to get more extension service information using technology that make it easier to reach large number of smallholder farmers and even faster. People might say, oh, what is the digital literacy level of the smallholder farmers? These are areas where I believe government and partners are working to increase that level. But if we see it across board in African countries today, the penetration of telecoms and digital literacy in rural areas is increasing with time. And we intend to get to that point where we can do more of such work to get to that point. We saw the video about mechanization, how just getting access to tractor for smallholder farmers can make them cultivate their land 40 times faster than to take able-bodied men using hoe and cutlasses to do the same thing. How that can also help them get 50% more yield on the same size of land. We talked about that if I might even get a loan at high interest rate, if I get a bigger, larger amount of yield from that same land, I can get more profit, and more profit can come back to me in that sense as well. We also in Africa, we live in one of the most vulnerable regions of the world that's vulnerable to climate change impact. Our farmers are struggling with floods. We know the floods that happened heavily in Nigeria in 2020, 2022 or 2021, recent one that happened in Mozambique, Malawi, and also in Madagascar. These are things that are showing that our farmers are more prone to climate change impact. And we have solutions by young people that have been designed to help farmers be able to predict the weather, to help farmers be able to take action, to decide what farming activity to embark on at every point in time as they go. And also they also have access to insurance that can ensure that when such things happen, they also have that resilience to be able to protect them against the shocks or not losing their entire investment in that particular farmland. So I just want to stop there so I don't take too much time. We can talk about that some more and engage after the session.
Yes, that was very well said, Mr. Rufus. Thank you very much. Mr. Daniel Huber, What is the present landscape of innovative agricultural finance options available to small-scale producers in Africa, and especially focusing on rural young individuals? Beyond that, how can we then bridge the existing gaps and create financial pathways that effectively empowers the youth in rural agricultural endeavors?
Thank you for the question, and good afternoon. I know I'm standing in between you and lunch, so I hope I do justice to that. If you look at the African continent today, and there's a lot of conversation around access to finance, and I broadly classify opportunities for access to finance into four. If you look at a couple of solutions out in the market, there are those that are providing debt to young people, right? So you have multilateral organizations that are providing debt facilities that are structured to be able to take care of the startup environment, ensuring that those that don't have, for example, collateral can be able to access that. You have debt that is coming from traditional financial institutions that are looking into innovative way of going out and lending into the young people in agriculture, for example. You have debt that is coming from government themselves, and a lot of government are establishing their own funds. Kenya has what they're calling the Hustler Fund, for example. And other markets, countries like here, are going into financing for young people. So you have debt as one main one. The second one, of course, you have is those that want to take in a stake into your business as a young person, and those who want equity out of that. And we know the opportunities and the challenges that comes with equity investment into young people, whether it is a change of direction because of what the investor wants to the reality of what is in our market today, and you have opportunity to be able to do that. The third one, of course, is where is the traditional ones, where people say, save your way up until you become stable, and however long it takes. And there are young people who say, I will be able to grow at my pace without necessarily attracting debt, and do that through my savings, either my own initial savings or business being reinvesting itself to ensure that I achieve sustainability, but I keep the focus, right? And then, of course, there is what many people are also aware, which is the grants. Grants that some people call them free capital. I don't think it's very free because it has things tied to that. And the idea here is that multilateral organizations, again, coming together and say, can we de-risk entry because private sector is not playing its role, especially financial institution. Now, if you look at all those options that are available, in my view, and take a step back and ask ourselves, where are we as a continent? And how are we maximizing these opportunities that are there? I will actually argue it's not that there is no lack of credit that is available for young people to be able to grow their businesses, and especially in agriculture. I think where the challenge is what is the effective credit option for these young people? If you choose any of the options I talked about, how does that choice influence your business model today? And the struggle that we see for a lot of young people is that you take the next available funding option that is there on the table. You run for a grant because you see a challenge that has been put forward. But how is that grant enabling your business to grow? How is that grant focusing on what you intended to resolve? And I think for me, the fit for purpose financial instrument are what we should be talking about to be able to help our young people to get there. The other thing that for me is critical is that how then do we also look at the opportunities that are there, but looking at it from a business lens. Credit only makes sense if you have the right business infrastructure to be able to absorb that credit, for example. Funding only makes business sense if you have the right infrastructure to be able to absorb that funding. This is the very reason why, for example, from a MasterCard perspective, right, we have for the last couple of years focused on a new mission targeted at individuals and businesses at last mile. We call that Community Pass. And what we've done is that we've established a social enterprise within MasterCard to focus on identifying these individual businesses and individual consumers and customers who want to leverage a shared infrastructure to reduce their cost of building business, build them to be strong businesses that can then access credit facility. And I'm very proud, for example, of the partnership we have with Heifer International. We've launched a partnership that looks at these young entrepreneurs, right, who are technology-driven, that are coming out and need support to become what we're calling commercial program owners or program partners, that they will leverage technology to de-risk their entry into the financial ecosystem, to be able to grow to the next level of business because they can tap into these facilities. But again, it goes back to what I said, that if we are not clear where is this financing going into, how is it going to be effective in unlocking the opportunity for business growth, then you'll move from one debt to the next, you'll move from one grant to the next, and soon enough, you'll have to shut down because you are serving the purpose of the financiers and not the purpose of your business. And that's what, in my view, we should look at in more detail. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Daniel. Thank you for bringing that fit-to-purpose orientation for young people that really want to solve a problem with the financing that they seek. Either it's a different instrument like debt, bootstrapping, equity, or grant. Now the next question is to Dr. Martin Fregene. How can we nurture a culture of agri-entrepreneurship among young people and provide them with the necessary training, the necessary mentorship and networks to create attractive investment opportunities? And now what policy and partnership frameworks are needed to ensure the sustainability and scalability of these interventions eventually when young people access them?
Yeah. Thank you for the question, and I'd like to thank Heifer International, thank you Adesua, for inviting the bank to participate with you in this very important event. I'm here with Patricia Lavalley, our country manager. I'm here in Tanzania. And I just want to say that it's no secret that Africa has a youth bulge. More than 500 million people on the continent are below the age of 40. But we also know that more than 30% are unemployed or underemployed. That is not just a time bomb, it's also a missed opportunity. And we don't want to see images of Africans dying, trying to cross the Mediterranean. So what the bank did in 2016, we launched what we call the Jobs in Africa initiatives, a major flagship of the bank. And the target is 25 million young Africans employed by 2025 and 50 million young Africans equipped. It's in all sectors, IT, agriculture, but I will talk only about agriculture today. In agriculture, we have what we call the empowerment of youth in novel agricultural employment, or we just call it Enable Youth, just for the acronym. And there we try to do three things. One is an enabling policy. You have to change the policy before banks can lend to young people. You must share some of the perceived risk for lending to young people with the banks. So it's an enabling environment. The second thing is you need to provide training, know-how to young people. So we have an incubation part of components. Then the third thing is finance. How do you ensure that young people get finance once they have acquired the know-how in their businesses? Enable Youth today has lent $490 million to different countries. And I will use one example that is being developed here in Tanzania. It's called a Building Better Tomorrow, and youth in agriculture. If you come on Thursday morning, it's going to be launched formally by the Ministers of Livestock and Agriculture. But I just want to say that as part of Enable You, we also have what they call Agro Pitch. We try to help young people acquire innovation. We also try to encourage young people to acquire some basic training and also expose them to investors. So what Agro Pitch does is a boot camp. Young people come to the boot camp, they're trained all kinds of things, marketing, business development. And then there's a deal room where they actually make a pitch to, and many of our young people who have actually gone to that actually have raised millions. There are companies I can tell you in Nigeria, in Kenya, in Rwanda, who have raised a lot of money through that. And then one other thing the bank is doing is what we call a Youth Entrepreneurship, Youth Investment Bank. We are trying to create banks that actually addresses the needs of young people. What are the needs of young people? Most of them have no credit history, zero. Many of them don't have collateral. They don't have buildings. They don't have things that can help you go to a bank and get loans. Many of them also don't even know the processes. So we hope that this Youth Entrepreneurship Investment Bank will help African young people easily. It's not going to be as easy as the US, where in 30 minutes you can actually get a loan, but at least easier than what it is today. So I promise to give an example. So the Building Better Tomorrow, or BBT, is a Tanzanian, very, very ambitious Tanzanian project. It's been led by the High Excellency Mama Samia Hassan, and it strives to provide employment to 200,000 young people. And there are three key components. The first component is develop farm blocks and then give out 10 acres to young people. And also try to invite private sector people as anchor borrowers to ensure market access. The second component is existing young people's business. How do you give them loans? How do you support them with respect to the policies, market access, and things like that? And then thirdly, how do you provide support to the private sector to help young people, either by mentoring them or actually by providing them offtakes? So BBT is a total of $500 million. We are investing $120 million. Like I said, if you come on Thursday, you will hear more about it. But you see, it has to be a holistic approach. You have to look at the policy around financing young people. You have to look at the skills, so young people have to acquire skills. You also have to look very carefully at everything about infrastructure. Businesses need infrastructure. So Tanzania is one good example, but there are many other examples. Just to say one last thing, that the bank believes that if young people succeed and make money, they are the best, advertisers to other young people. You cannot beat young people telling other young people, I did this and I made so much money. They will all come in. That's why it's important to have champions. Help so a few young people succeed, so we can quickly upscale this, because it's a lot of people. You're talking of 500 million people. It's a lot of people that you really have to create jobs for. So that's why we really hope that through our programs and also many programs of HIFA, we just had a Helitractor, we can create champions that will help us scale up very quickly. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Martin, for giving us information about BBT, Enable Youth, and YAIB. Thank you so much. Now the next question is directed to Mr. Daniel Huber and Ayodeji Arikawe. We would like you to tell us what mechanisms and resources are necessary to scale successful youth-led agricultural projects, ensuring their broader impact across communities and across regions. Mr. Daniel, please, you go first.
Yeah, thanks again. One of the things we also noticed very strongly is that if you look at the African continent again today, it's not that young people are not involved in initiatives and businesses. It's not that transactions and trade is not happening. The challenge we have is a lot of these transactions and trade are happening informally. So out of every 10 transactions, so from a MasterCard, we use the name transactions a lot, and it's always been associated with payment. But I'd like to open that conversation and say, when you talk about transaction, in our world, we talk about life transactions, not just payment, because payment is a result of a transaction. So from farmers bringing their produce to the market, to a trader sourcing their produce from a supplier, to an agro dealer selling inputs. These types of transactions, if you look at the African continent today, 6 out of every transaction that is happening in agriculture today is happening informally, right? It is in the dark that financial institutions have no visibility as to those transactions. 6 out of every 10 transactions are happening in the dark today. The other unfortunate part is that while most governments are working very hard to be able to roll out national ID schemes, right? Over 30% of Africans today, many of them who are young people, don't have any form of a national identity. Forget about a functional ID to be able to allow them to transact. So they are transacting informally. They don't have a national ID. Therefore, they start from a disadvantaged perspective when you look at the financial institutions across all the funds I talked about. what's also unfortunate is that the traditional way of looking at financing looks as an individual and says, one, do you have a track record of transaction? That's how banks, actually, I make the joke that if you look at a large-scale farmer in Africa who banks has a relationship manager who calls him before the season, say, good morning, son, madam, we know the season is coming up, we have this facility prepared for you. Who calls the smallholder farmer during the season? Do they have an RM? They don't, right? It is because the large-scale farmers have organized themselves so well that they can then get the banks to look at them. The challenge we face is because they look at transaction record and they look at a KYC. That's why we must change the game and say, for the young people, how do we support them to be able to, first of all, have what we call basically a functional identity, a credential, a pass to be able to allow them to transact, that when they are buying their goods and services, that is recorded as a transaction. When they are getting inputs, that is recorded as a transaction. And how do we build then a digital profile that then is associated with them? And that's what we want to do. And if we do that effectively and are able to bring to life these transactions that young people are engaged in, then we shall start turning the point. That we shall make it a currency that these transactions that they've been having suffices to substitute the asked for collateral. And if we can be able to make the rule fair, that financial institutions can be able to see that across board and start recognizing these transactions, then we shall start moving the needle.
Thank you very much, Mr. Daniel, for bringing out how it's important that data and digitization. Now, can we have Oyedele chime in on that?
Okay, I feel like Mr. Daniel said like the hard things, I'll say like the soft things, right? I think the first thing I'll say to the audience is like, don't look down on young people, right? I know like everyone says we want young people to come into agriculture, but like every single time you see someone in a t-shirt, you assume he's on serious, right? So like this is actually my first time wearing a suit. It's an event in like 4 years. Like my default is to wear t-shirts to events, and I feel like when my colleague had come here last year and was like, oh no, if you wear a t-shirt, you look at the place, people will be looking at you. As I walked down with my sneakers, I suppose like, who is this guy wearing sneakers to a serious event? So I think the first thing is like, young people, just as he has shared, want to look at other young people as models, and young people don't want to wear suits or natives. And so like, I mean, look at them for like, what's the quality of the product they're selling? What's the, what's in their mind? What does the team look like? For instance, we've built a team of 2,000 people working across today 3 countries, and our average age is 27. And that's because people have not looked down on us. People have decided to open the doors for us. So I think the first thing really is, yes, we say we want young people to work, but like, be open to going to an office and looking at a young person as the CEO. Be open to seeing a young lady as the chairman of the board, and then providing them those opportunities. Because really it's via partnerships with like older, more matured companies and mentors that will be able to really create these opportunities for younger people. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Oyedele, for speaking on behalf of young people, because we like people to see a solution and not the stereotypes. Thank you. Now to Mr. Rufus. What are some inspiring examples of youth-led agriculture projects that have effectively leveraged innovative capital, and what lessons can be drawn from them and their experiences?
Thank you, Ife, for that question. I think I just want to, first of all, let us know that there's a paradigm shift that's happening. In the past in Africa, we used to just be consumers of technology and innovation. I think these days, a lot of our young people are now showing us that they are now developing the technology and innovation. And we need to embrace that and see how much we can support them to help solve problems that we see within that space. We've seen a lot of young tech innovators within the agricultural space that have actually use innovative financing to either kickstart their innovations or also scale or expand their innovation across regions, even also deepen the penetration as well within countries. We just saw the video earlier about Hello Tractor that was able to get an initial $1 million, then $4.5 million, then using that money as that catalyst now to now bring in more capital and more investment from other sources, raising that money from just that initial seed funding to almost $17 million US. That's huge. We have groups like AFEX, for instance. AFEX spoke earlier and talked about how they've been able to use innovative financing without going through a normal commercial bank to raise almost $200 million to provide solutions to smallholder farmers across board in Africa and across the region, across different countries. That's also great and innovative things that we're seeing. We have the likes of Ayodeji from Tribe Agric that have just gotten the $1 million cash prize from Heifer's Ayute program across the region. And that he will be impacting a lot of smallholder farmers in accessing finance, giving them visibility within the space, and also helping young people that will play roles as digital agricultural champions that will help provide solutions there. The moderator today also from Superfarm and Market as well is actually a winner also of one of our UT country program in Nigeria that won some seed funding to actually grow her innovation, and now she's expanding on that. I'm using that same money to de-risk and also provide opportunity for others to come in and put some investment in there. And the same thing with DigiCow that's here as well today, and also other people providing, for instance, cold storage support in cold hubs also in Nigeria as well. What we see is that most times a lot of the instrument out there to finance or to fund tech is actually not, a lot of them are not really designed and wired to fund tech. So it's difficult for these ag tech people to convince and provide the different kind of model that will fit the financial modeling that you want to see before you invest in that. That's why it's important for organizations like Heifer International and others in the room here to first of all take that first risk, helping to these young people to help get that funding, to prove the idea, to test the concept, and show that it can work. The disadvantage for the tech companies sometimes is that when they design something, it's innovative, it's the first time you're designing it. It's difficult to benchmark against anything out there. It's like I'm opening a bakery, for instance. I can say, oh, there's a bakery next door. We know how bakery work. Or I'm going to be making powder and bread. But when you're designing something that is innovative, I want to start telling farmers how to predict the weather and be able to do X, Y, Z. Banks might never understand what that means. I mean, how do you make money? How does that work? So on the other side as well, it's also important to build the capacity of the young innovators as well, to not only think about the innovation as something that they're passionate about. It's good for the passion to drive that innovation first. But it's also important to now say, let me now sit down, how commercially viable is this as well? I'm going to make impact, become social enterprise. But at the same time, I'm talking to someone that wants to put their money in there. How do they get their money back? So we must look at the commercial viability of that particular idea. And for our young people as well, it's also important to also be patient. Sometimes we're in a hurry to just launch and raise the money immediately and do this. So at times it takes some time to get to that point to be able to get and raise the kind of funds that you need to deploy and get the work done. So I just, for the sake of time, I won't stop there and give a chance to someone else to speak. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rufus. So we have two last questions for our panelists, and in that time, please, I want young people in the room to start gathering your questions, as these last two questions to the panelists will be quite short because of our time. So back to you, Dr. Martin. What are the benefits and challenges of attracting local versus international investment for youth-led agriculture, and how can a balanced approach be achieved for youth in Africa?
The truth is, there is far more money within countries compared to money with governments or with development banks, or even from outside. There's a lot of money inside. But the truth is that money is not available for people with zero credit history or people who are just with greenfield businesses. It's just not available for them. So what the bank has done is we try to share risk, perceived risk with the commercial banks. And we have what we call the risk-sharing facilities, where we approach a country and we give them concessional funding. This is 2%, 20-year loans. And that money is placed as a guarantee for commercial banks who lend to young people or lend to a sector. If they lose their money, they get half of it back. It's called risk-sharing facility. We have one operating in Ghana. We also have, we've done one in Malawi, we've done one in Liberia, in Togo, and we are actually designing many more, because it's a way to assure the banks that you're not carrying all the risk. And even in some instances, even provide them interest drawback. We know one of the problems of lending in Africa is the very high interest rates. So if the young person pays according to the payment plan, he actually gets a drawback of a 50% on the interest. So that's one way the bank is in it. But there are many other ways, and I mentioned the Youth Entrepreneurship Investment Bank. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Martin. And to Jemima and Ayo, if you're also able to weigh in on this, what do you think when you see the future of Africa's agriculture? What do you always imagine? And how do you envision innovative financing to enable this future that you envision?
Thank you once again. And to begin with, of course, I envision a food secure Africa, where we don't have to get shocked every other time there's a drought or when there are floods, because of innovations that will have been put in place. There will be precision agriculture. Farmers will be able to better plan. I also envision a lot of youth engagement, and I'm ambitious enough to imagine a time when we are going to have more youth relocating from urban setups to rural setup to take up agriculture. And also youth engagement does not necessarily need that they need, it doesn't mean that they need to plow and get hard at work within the farms, because the young people don't want that, but they can innovate around that. And we are going to have
also other critical conversations in the room. We've got everyone almost in. A few more persons are coming in gradually. And the next time you hear my voice, I promise you I'll officially be starting. So I'd like to welcome all of us for joining us. I'm excited to see a lot of young people in the building as well. As we said, it's a good blend of experience and youth. And we'll be rubbing off one another and getting the best out of this discussion. Remember, again, the theme is leveraging innovative capital for youth in agriculture. How do we bring in more young people into this space? What's the barrier? What are the inhibitors? And how do we deal with them? So we're glad to have all of you join us. And it promises to be a very interesting conversation that'll happen in another 1 hour or thereabout. So thank you again and welcome.
Distance was mentioned as well as an issue. AgTech solutions obviously are critical for that. M-Pesa, for example, I think was the one mentioned by FX specifically. So those kinds of digital applications, digital wallets could be interesting support in order to get further outreach with farm organizations, and also in terms of developing a credit history. Collateral, this one was controversial. I'd love to have a conversation with the gentleman on group lending, because I think what he was saying was very interesting. FX uses it as a tool in terms of mitigating risk. I know it's been used significantly in the microfinance industry in the past and very successfully. I'm curious to know about some of the challenges in the ag sector regarding that. And of course, creating market linkages. And let me see if there's anything else. So one final comment in terms of change in mindset, I think was mentioned by either someone from the audience or here, but really this mindset of grant funding versus a track record and a history and an understanding that things for free normally aren't either sustainable or you have to have value for your buck. So there has to be a culture that's developed in terms of repayment somehow, some way, especially if we want to increase access to finance using private sector funding, which in my view, given the incredible gap between demand and supply of financing, is the only way in the future that that's going to be able to go. So we have to be thinking about solutions and ways to change mindset across all different levels. And with that, unfortunately, no one gets to ask me any questions. I will officially close this session. Thanks again, everyone, for IFAD. It's been a wonderful learning experience. And please feel free to reach out to me. I'm very approachable. I'm still learning a lot about farm organizations, and we're going to be working on it a lot. So any kinds of suggestions or recommendations are more than welcome. Thanks, and enjoy your next session.
Thank you very much. much. Just a quick invitation, please. We can also consider staying back for what's coming up